all had a chance to review the 2023 annual report from SubSummit on the subscription commerce industry. Wasn't small, over 40 pages, lots of data. Let's talk about some of the points. Right away you see in the beginning, the subscription market is going to be $200 billion this year, 2023, and they're saying it's going to be over $1 trillion by 2027. Jordan, we were talking about earlier, was that 96% of the US population all have one subscription. While it's a true stat, I think we have to kind of dig into it a little bit to better understand it.
My big thing too is, even to take a step back, and we've done and spoke about this, John, you and I, like subscriptions, memberships, and all this it's nothing new. I mean, when you go back to the 80s, you had magazine subscriptions delivered to your doorstep every single week or month, whatever.
Columbia House.
I was just about to go to Columbia House. You wanted your CDs, you wanted your all of that.
Yeah.
You wanted to then pay, $21.99 for a CD again in the next year.
When we put subscriptions or membership in a context, my favorite thing to ever get delivered, and is probably the first thing I ever had delivered when I moved to the United States, is Eastbay. I don't know if you guys remember the shoes. And then you would call them and order whatever you wanted, and they would send it to you. I mean, it was like right before the internet boom. I mean, it's like what really changed them. But given said that, I am though surprised, knowing from what I know, and I think Jordan, who you work with, John, the community that we're all part of, I'm still shocked, given that we know how well subscriptions have worked historically. We're talking about 40, 50 years back, that e-commerce companies are still not adapting to it as quickly as they should. So like when we do talk about the large number that everyone has a subscription, membership, however you want to define it, but I still feel when you go on these websites that most people are not tapping into it, which is still really, really odd to me.
Let me ask there, do you think that every single product on the internet that was sold in an e-commerce fashion is subscription friendly? Do you believe that your t-shirts, anything that you consume or wear or buy should be on a subscription?
Not necessarily in subscription from just a convenience standpoint, like auto ship, but I think a membership, absolutely. For example, we order our shirts for Prella from Rush Hour Tees. It's a customized service. I do like them because their service is incredible, but I don't think I would ever look elsewhere if they had a specific membership for me to always keep bringing me back X% off on order shirts, like whatever the case is. A form of a subscription could be applied to every single business.
Interesting. And I guess, although I started my business with KitNipBox and all this space, I see across the board, and I think that some brands are not necessarily friendly or that way. You don't need your technology or of the company you bought your TV monitor. Maybe you do for support, I guess, but I don't need my clothing that frequently to have a subscription and have a membership to them. I'm already brand loyal. I know that I'm going to go back to them. I know that this is the product I'm going to go buy on that side. So my opinion on this one is I don't know that every single product needs it. So, and I think that's probably why you're not seeing it on every e-commerce, because there are going to be people like me and founders out there that think, oh, it's okay. It's more of a distraction than it is a core value of our product. And if we just make our product good enough, they're going to come back and buy more anyway.
So would you consider a loyalty program being a membership program?
I understand that a loyalty program drives a community and gives value back. I guess I'll play devil's advocate and ask, is it necessary to drive a customer back in the door, right? If we're just giving them something on that side, and instead it's the product that's going to drive people to come back and buy.
It's literally just looking at it through a different lens, which I hadn't done until this discussion. I probably was thinking the same way. There's so much missed opportunity. Sometimes that maybe that's just not your approach.
I'm not talking like brand to brand. I'm talking about wallet to wallet. How do we retain their attention to the brand? They may not buy, but if they discover something else that may be a better alternative, how do you close them in, put horse blinders on them to make sure that they don't venture off and experience another brand? And then it's like, oh, now that wallet share gets divided, or whatever the case might be.
I don't think that's possible, is maybe my perspective here. If I am loyal to, and here's the shirt I'm wearing is a Uniqlo shirt, right? And I know the fit works for me. I know this is that I'm comfortable in that side, and I'm gonna go there first. Will I try another brand? Probably, right? Have I tried? Do I have another half a dozen brands inside of my closet? Definitely. But at the end of the day, this is what fits me the best, and I'm going to go back to it. If there was another company that came in at a good price point that fit me the same way, I probably would be willing to buy both, right? And maybe that would split the market share on that side. But if Uniqlo had a subscription for me, I don't know that that would change it. Maybe if they sent me a new one every single month or a new thing, but then I might have too much product and it would come in at a different level. So there's a fine balance across the board. And we all know that as subscription people, right? Some people are just afraid of that or they don't want it.
Like Uniqlo, as an example, would you consider, if they had a membership program that had nice perks and benefits, would you consider joining it?
They have one and I don't use it. And I'll use it, like I'll get a coupon, I'll get some of that. But maybe this is a little bit of me. I'm very transactional. I'll buy it when I need it.
Now, let me reverse the question though. So I think the difference too in our discussion, which is funny given that you are also on the brand side, I'm
Yep.
talking from a brand perspective. You're
Yeah.
speaking from a consumer's perspective. Let me switch the conversation, and can you answer the same questions through a brand lens?
And through a brand lens, it's the exact opposite. We want the customer to be hooked. There's no question.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I guess we want the customer to be hooked. We want them to be in every time. We don't want them to have to take their credit card every single time they want to make a transaction. We don't want that decision point. I 100% agree. We want them on the subscription so we can be focused on churn as opposed to repurchase rates. These are the direction we want to be in. But I think if we ignore consumer behavior, we're actually cutting out a huge percentage of the market, right? And that's, I think, to go tie us back to the trends report. I am very curious if they had done any analysis, because it wasn't here, of how many e-commerce direct-to-consumer brands out there have a subscription element to their core website. And from the numbers that I've seen, it's somewhere around 20 to 30% of customers have a direct-to-consumer element, then say, okay, here's our one-off products. What percentage of those people naturally gravitate to a subscription? Without pushing much further, you'll get an extra 20 to 30%. So I actually think that's similar to customer behavior and the consumer behavior to say, oh, only 20 to 30% of people really want everything to be on subscribe and save, everything on a subscription or on that side. And the other 70 to 80% of people want to say, oh, I need this today. That's what I'm going to buy. So if we keep our blinders on as brands as well, we may be cutting off a huge percentage of our market.
Assuming when we're cutting out the percentage of our market is that we're going all in on subscriptions, because I'm thinking more of a hybrid model where
Yeah.
you can do multiple things.
Yeah, I think when you've got the hybrid model, it makes sense. And I think you're right there. You give everybody what they need. You give your brand loyalists what they're looking for early access to everything. But at the same time, the people that are afraid of it or not interested have the opportunity to do their first purchase, right? As a brand, I'll just say the risk is people think they need to drive everybody to the subscription then and make their subscription element bigger and bigger part of their business. And I don't know that that's necessary.
Yeah, I think it can be a complement. My point earlier, like everyone should have it. I think it should be a complement. It doesn't have to be core business for them. Like,
But you might have the consumer that wants something like
yeah,
that.
I'll be the same way. And to what Jordan was saying is there's a ton of brands that I absolutely love, but I don't need or want to buy from them every month or every quarter. Maybe I buy from them 2 to 3 times a year. But when I buy and I need something, in that vertical that they serve, I go to them because I trust them, whether it's a shirt, shoes, or whatever. Like, I don't want Nike on a subscription. I just don't need that much Nike stuff. But when I buy shoes, I usually go to Nike, I go to Adidas and a few of these brands, but I don't think I would ever be a Nike member from a perspective of paying for a membership or whatever the case is.
So it's interesting. So I'm trying to think memberships. Typically, I'm not buying it as a consumer. Some of the times I've been converted into a membership. I was purchasing something from Best Buy and they got me at the end. They said, do you want to add this Best Buy pass where it's a warranty on the product? They're going to come out and replace and fix and all of that. It was a, page 2 of checkout upsell add-on where they said, it's normally $250. It'll be $150 today. It's good for a year. I've converted at times like that. I would have never searched it out though. Like for whatever reason, I buy from Best Buy a lot of times, but I would have never searched out that membership. But when it was offered and positioned in that way, it got me.
Which is essentially a value add, right?
Yeah.
And that's what they were trying to give you. And it sounded like they're relabeling insurance.
Yeah.
And that's another one that's on a recurring subscription, right? So they labeled it as a membership, they labeled it that way, and now you think that there's a big value add to it, which I get, and I agree. I think it can be a big value add. I think that's something that in the report they talk about a lot as well, right? How do you continue to give value to your customers and bring them back in, or not, or keep them? And you have to do that through adding a constant value. And so Best Buy saying to you, hey, you bought this product, we want you to keep coming back. Here's value for the current product you bought. If you like it, then hopefully you'll just continue to come back because of that.
When I'm looking at memberships, I'm looking at it purely from, I do it when I think the value add and possible return is there. So like in your shirt example, I'm very loyal to a brand called Untuckit, so much so that like I needed some new Untuckit shirts and I waited to the last minute and it wasn't going to ship in time, so like I drove into Atlanta to the one brick and mortar they have at one of the malls just to get the shirt. And I think about that one, like if they were in a position of membership, yeah, they have a community, but like I'm not a part of it. I just like the way the shirt fits me. I would probably only buy the membership if there was like a very clear path to, okay, they're discounting shirts to this amount and I can do some math. I'm going to buy this amount of shirts, so then it makes sense. They would be losing revenue though on me.
Well, I think that's the whole point of this, where now you start to do a calculus of the only value you're going to get is a financial value. But when we look at other companies, let's not specifically tangible shirt companies, we think about Verizon, we think about Netflix, or we think about some of these other companies that are out there, and what is the value they're giving us? They're giving us content, or they're giving us access to something. It's not something that you are able to tangibly put a dollar amount to, which is the best kind of value. Maybe this actually makes the argument to you, Amer, about how not everything needs to be a subscription, because then we always have to be proving the dollar value we are giving you. And we are making sure that, oh, you gave us $5, we're going to make sure we give you $10 in value. Whereas a good movie that is released from Netflix, nobody's going and saying, "Oh yeah, that just paid for my $7.99 or my 10 or whatever the prices are now, $15.99 for Netflix a month," right? Because that one movie, had I gone to the movie theater, would have cost me $50, and so, but nobody does that calculus. I know that's the calculus I do when I don't want to go out at night, and I look at them like, Saturday night, let's stay home and let's watch a movie. Oh, it's only a $10 purchase or rental online for the new release as opposed to going to the movie. But when I think about my subscriptions, I'm not doing that same calculus.
If they've done a good job. Do you have a Mac or a PC?
I have a Mac. So
I'm so anti Apple, and then like I hear like cool things and it's just so irritating. It's pure stubbornness at this point.
If you don't like a great user experience, stick to a PC.
Oh, look at that.
And Android, right?
Yeah.
Essentially, that's the ultimate of customer loyalty and value, right?
They've done an amazing job.
They've got the customer base across the board, always waiting for the new release, and that's how they're going to do it.
My favorite part is that they've created such loyalty and fanatics that they've trained them to shame Android users and PC users in like a negative manner, but like it's amazing. Like, what other side you're on, like you have to give it the major props for somehow executing that.
We don't shame anyone. We just can't visualize us using such a poor device.
I get shamed once a week because of the color of my text.
Well, that's a different story. The color of your text needs to be blue, and and if it's green, we just I think we're gonna have to use Slack or some other mode of communication. I'm sorry, probably WhatsApp would work better. We're not gonna text you.
Not a problem if it's one-on-one, but in public sphere when it's a group message, and we see green, and the fact that I can't like or love a comment or respond to a thread.
No, the fact is that you can do it, and then they get the whole message repeated to them. Oh, Jordan liked your message. Jordan hearted your message. And so then we look like the fools in this group text message, and so we don't do it. See? That is exactly how it is built into the system perfectly.
But I will give Apple all the credit, all the criticism and everything. A great product earned them this loyalty.
Is the product that great? My camera is better.
Other than a camera, is that the reason you buy a a phone? Is camera it? Or is it at this point usability, integration, how simply it interfaces with everything else in your ecosystem?
100%.
How much money has your camera made you? Are you a professional photographer?
Do you do you need a 20 megabyte camera? Like, is it really necessary? As it is, I've seen you walk around conferences with a little GoPro anyway.
Yeah, you didn't attach your phone to it. Is that
God.
because your camera's so great and you bought the phone
Wait,
because of the camera?
do you guys feel good about yourself shaming me in this moment?
How to get loyal members like Apple? That's gonna be the title of this one.
Well, it's the epitome of a subscription. It's epitome of brand loyalty as well, right? They're continuously providing value. And actually, they have the ability for you to do a payment plan and a subscription on it. They have Apple Care. They have all of these items. And you are hooked in it. You're hooked across the board into that ecosystem. I don't do Apple Music, but I agree. The people do because they're already in it and they know they can download it.
But then you guys are fine with the fact that Apple really changed the game of digital advertising by making that move with iOS.
But it was inevitable. I think the reality is the younger generation has understood privacy in a much different level than I would say us and older. And so we always understood we were the product and we were giving it away. And the younger generation was very clear, no, absolutely not. We want to choose what we want and where we want to put it. And granted, they're very public in everything they do, but it was inevitable that someone was going to come along and say, we're going to now make all this private. And it's happening across the board. We're seeing this further. It's going to continue happening, and that's okay. It'll make us all better and smarter for it. We, as marketers, relied on having all of that data as I would say, as a crutch. We didn't have to learn. We were just able to succeed quickly. And now that it's gone, okay, we have to become marketers again.
It's been beneficial if you were able to learn and run fast and be a true marketer. You still succeeded. And others are now perishing, which, when that happens, it's sad, but at the same time, it creates opportunity for those that chose to learn and chose to adapt.
When a company like Apple shifts the paradigm so much, the important part is also to look from both sides. It's like, what are they trying to solve? But what's the consequence of the solution, which is privacy for them? And privacy has been on the table from them for a very long time. So I think with every problem, like you guys said, there's a new opportunity of marketing tactics evolution with new tools that are going to come out to maybe battle some of these restrictions, limitations. So I think with every restriction, there's a level of new form of opportunity, entrepreneurial opportunity. And there's going to be platforms that stem out of this that we're like, oh my God, why didn't we think of this? Because they're going to address the limitations of privacy that's on Apple devices.
I think you're right. It pushes innovation. But I think the other part of this, we talk about it as brands and brand owners, that we're raging against the machine. How could you remove all of this and make our lives harder? But instead, think about it as the subscription company selling to individual users, and pushing the privacy agenda has made customers more loyal for them. It has driven loyalty. It continues to drive repurchase rates across the board. And so when iOS 14 came out and people had the option or were told, oh, you're going to get a little pop-up that says share my data, don't share my data, everyone was like, yes, I can't wait to not share my data, right? That was a really groundswell moment and engaging moment for Apple users that I think drove home loyalty in a much stronger way.
A question for me would be actually for you, John, and for you, Jordan, given that you guys come from that space. For people that are listening and now trying to see both sides and both perspectives of when you should position a subscription or not. So what is a good signal for an operator of a business that doesn't have a subscription currently that would say, hey, you should consider a subscription?
Obviously, it's determined on the product, right? I think the product is a big part of it. If you have a replenishable product, I think the path and justification for it obviously makes sense. Outside of that, looking at your analytics and data and seeing, repeat buyer data, what LTV is looking like, over what duration of time are those purchases coming up. I'm quickly with what I just said, venturing into the sweet spot of Jordan's expertise of looking at that data. I'm going down the right path there, Jordan?
I think that's right. I think if you don't have a subscription element, looking at it and saying, how can we engage customers to have their repurchase rate be faster, right? If maybe they're buying every 6 months right now, if you got them on a quarterly cycle or something along those lines, they'd still be happy because they need the product and they'll do it, or just make it more of a sure thing. That again speaks to the ease of getting someone in the door and making that happen. I think that's certainly valuable and a good way to look at it. The other thing I would say is when your cost of user acquisition is too high, you should look at introducing a subscription, because that will also guarantee, hopefully, that you're getting more people to repurchase faster and then you're making more money in the long term. It'll help shorten your payback period if you've done it right. And that's, I think, the critical piece.
Have either one of you ever looked into reacquisition cost for a customer?
Of course. But what do you mean by that? Are you thinking about reacquisition of an existing subscriber, reacquisition of just a regular purchaser?
Regular purchase and non-subscription.
So if I were an e-commerce only business that did not have a subscription, the way that we would be focused on advertising actually wouldn't be about the cost of user acquisition alone. It would be about a general MER, marketing efficiency rate, and a general ROAS, because you always have to pay to bring someone back in the door. And so you have to assume that you're going to pay maybe not the same amount to bring the person back in the second time, but you have to assume you're going to pay a similar amount to bring the person back the second time if you're just a one-off per product. That means you're going to have to be advertising for them all the time. And to your point before about, well, if I don't want to give up brand a part of the wallet share, a friend of mine once shared with me that in the bed industry, people are only in market to buy a bed once every 7 years. And so when they think about it from that perspective, now they have to be advertising in front of you for 7 years, so that when that 7-year mark comes, whenever it may be, maybe you just bought one, but for the next 7 years, you've got to see it so that when you're ready to buy again, you understand which brand you're going to buy from. And so those companies, that's why they have to be looking at in profitability right now. They can't have a 7-year viewpoint, because if they have a 7-year viewpoint, they'll be bankrupt, right? If I never get paid for those 7 years and the bed costs $1,000, forget it, right? So they have to be thinking about it as a small approach on that side. And you do have to think about how much your cost of acquiring any purchase is. It's a purchase as opposed to your cost of acquiring a new customer.
At what point is a requisition too high where you have to start to think about like, hey, I need to start investing into turning these one-time customers into members and to subscribers, opposed to trying to tell my email marketing team to dish out more emails, or tell my paid media team to boost up retargeting, like whatever the case is. And I wonder if there's like a number or a threshold that people can look into to say like, hey, I need to start to think about shifting my strategy to put people on subscriptions to lower the expense of marketing.
One of the industry standards for e-commerce companies is a 30% repurchase rate. So that's the first number you should be looking at. And you really want that 30% repurchase rate within the first 6 months. And the reason why that's industry standard, or why people are looking for those kinds of things, is if you're able to get 30% of your customers to buy again within 6 months, you're already starting this snowball effect of people enjoy your brand, they like your brand, they're going to come back automatically. If the numbers are lower, then chances are you're going to have to be paying more to bring a customer back in the door. I'll be honest though, if your numbers are lower, I would tell you to look at your product before and what's wrong with the product, as opposed to why people aren't coming back and buying and whether you're advertising effectively.
To take what we were just talking about, requisition, acquisition, and everything, in the report, a test, they were talking about the most effective sales channels. What were your guys' kind of main reactions to it?
I mean, I loved it. I thought this was spot on. For everyone that doesn't have the report in front of them, they called out that TV commercials are in the top 3 categories for most effective sales channels. If your target demographic is in the mid-30s or older, you need to be on TV. And as opposed to what we hear over and over again, oh, we're just on social media, we're only advertising on Facebook. Now, those are top 3 for anyone younger than 35 years old, right? And so that was perfect. I love it because I hear about that. Something I preach all the time, that we have to understand where our customers are consuming their advertising. And this is wonderful to see. I thought this was a fantastic way to illustrate that if you understand who your customer is, you can identify where you have to advertise and speak to them.
The TV commercial piece didn't surprise you, and you and I were chatting, and it surprised me. And we've tried both traditional TV. We haven't figured it out yet. I was quickly just not a fit for us. It's not our demographic. But then this data suggests that we probably need to measure and attempt it a few more times, because clearly it isn't our demographic. For BattlBox, it's 24, 25 to 44, 45, right? Which definitely the top half of that is looking to TV commercials.
But if you also look in those areas, the 31 to 40, they've put as their one of the top 3 being organic social media posts. And you've actually leaned into that very well across the board with Brendan on your team, building out new content all day long, a personality that way in an organic way. Not as paid social media, but rather organic posts. And I think that shows you've already hit into it. Whether you understood it from a report like this or not, you're already hitting it. So I think, yes, you definitely want to do some more tests and figure out how do you connect on TV for those people. But don't sell yourself short. You've done an amazing job, and you've done it instinctually as without this data.
Sure. Fair enough. Thank you.
When it comes to like TV as an example, and I don't know if you guys know this, does it work for what I call impulse purchases? Is TV maybe better for purchases, maybe 99 and under, that would be one-off purchases, kind of like as seen on TV style? Like, oh my God, I got to get this, let me have it. Where maybe for subscription brands, it's a little bit of a tougher sell because the purchase or the commitment is much larger than a $20 purchase. We're talking about potentially, if your subscription is $50 per month, then you're getting into that $600 contribution to the brand over a year.
I'll tell you, I think it's probably the opposite. So if we go back to the conversation we were having before about what percentage of people are interested and all in for a subscription, they need a little convincing sometimes. Is it worth the value? Or is there enough of a reason to sign up? There's a consideration period. And yes, $50 a month may seem like a small number when we say, oh, just give us $50. But as you pointed out, that could be $600 in a year. And everyone does that math and they do that calculus. And so TV advertising is not cheap. So it actually goes the other way. If you have a big enough price point, it adds to the consideration period. It adds to the top funnel. The other part of it is it adds to the credibility. If you are a brand that's able to advertise on TV, then all of a sudden people are coming to you like, oh my God, I can't believe you're out there. That's amazing. How did you get out there? And you're a real brand. So there's a lot of that.
It's a really good point.
There's such an emphasis in building a community for a lot of subscription brands. So my kind of perspective was like, I guess, would it be better for subscription companies to focus a lot more on that rather on TV, because it's a more long-lasting impact. It's less transactional. So that's what's kind of like where I was leaning into.
Well, let me ask you a question. If you acquire one customer, and you just told me we acquire that customer and we'll get $600 in a year, and let's just for argument's sake say that that's the lifetime value of the customer. We take that and we say, hey, we take in 10 of those customers, we got $6,000. The organic social side of things, where you're driving that community, helps ensure we lengthen the lifetime value. Maybe we can take it from 600 to 700. Maybe we can take it all the way to 1,000. But if we're able to reach our target demographic in one of the top 3 ways they're consuming media, it'll take the number from 10 to 100 people that are able to start. Now, maybe we need the community to pull them together. So this way we have not only 100 people, but we're going to keep them longer. But it has to be both. It can't be an either or. It has to be and.
No, I agree with that. No, 100%. I don't think I'm very big on to going across different channels, whether you're selling on eBay or Shopify, or whether you're marketing on different channels. I think that's very, very important. I just wonder the cost associated with it, but because of what you said. When you are a brand, you go on TV, there's a certain equity that you get into your brand, of that trust. Is like, oh, this is an established brand that can afford it, so on and so forth. But then when you start to convert, like what John said earlier, it didn't work for them. Is it a too big or too expensive of a proposition for some brands? I think everybody should try it, but not necessarily blindly and constantly push it, especially kind of given what you outlined with John having such incredible success on the organic channels with the work Brandon is doing and the team is doing.
John, how long did it take you to hit on Brandon's success and just your overall success in your organic? So was it an overnight success? Was it 3 months? Was it 6 months? What kind of investment did you do on that side?
No, it was a grind. Every part of it, I would say, if we segment it into specific parts, okay, we're focused on the TikTok organic piece, or we're focused on the YouTube Shorts piece. I would say, if you're looking at all of them, probably the mean of the investment of time before we saw any sort of success was greater than a year on each one.
So let me ask a question. Why should we expect any new channel to take us less than that to figure out?
It's a great point. I knew where you were going with it, and I was like, he's right.
But I don't think that should be the question, though.
You don't think that should be the question?
With organic, I think it's a little bit different. And correct me, guys, if I'm wrong. I think when you do organic, take Brandon as an example, or the spokespeople or brand ambassadors for companies, they have a multitude of things that they're doing for the product. They're reviewing the boxes. They're doing all these things. So sometimes for a brand, it might be easier to do this, even though it's a grind from a financial standpoint. If you're throwing something into a pit of fire and you don't have enough runway as a business, it can quickly backfire because you're trying to scale too quickly.
I 100% agree with you. And the question that I'll ask you is the size of the business. At a certain size of the business, to your point, we're talking about a salary of a full-time person that you're looking to invest in the organic side of it. Maybe it's multiple people and that video editing teams and who knows what. And then the same thing has to happen for TV, that you've got to invest in the production value and all of that happens. If you're a person, a one-person team, and you're doing it all, I agree. Invest in the organic. It's your time, it's your effort, you're the limiting factor. But at a certain point, you're going to hit a level where you say a $50,000 investment to go and test out TV for a year or 6 months or whatever it may be is worth it and maybe that's 10% of my annual budget. Maybe that's 20% of my annual budget. Whatever it may be, maybe that's 5%. But it needs to be something where you're committing and you're saying, is it 50,000? Is it 100,000? Is it 200,000? Whatever it may be, so that we give it the time and effort and energy to prove it out and see how it works.
From my perspective, I don't think I made myself clear. I was more comparing TV to digital rather than TV to organic.
I think when we compare the two, they're very different. And this is another part of just the entire ecosystem. When we compare digital advertising like meta advertising, Facebook, Instagram, etc., we see it immediately. We see the click, we see the view, we understand it, we can feel it immediately. And that is really easy, and it's a little bit like an endorphin kick for us. And yes, I saw the click, I saw the email, I saw the people come in. TV and connected TV are different. You don't see it right away. What ends up happening with both of those channels is that those people don't come to the website. They only come to the website when they're finally ready to purchase. So what you end up seeing is your conversion rates go up, but you don't end up seeing all the rest, or you end up remarketing to them, or who knows, whatever else on that side. And so, yeah, you got to have patience, and it's not easy.
Have you had experience with TV, Jordan, where you could give some advice of how to leverage digital and TV together to maybe maximize success of TV or programmatic TV?
Yeah, totally. I think that the key across the board is to have a unified strategy where you have a certain message that's bringing somebody in at the top funnel and they're learning about your brand, they're being exposed on that. And then you have to make sure, number one, your brand search and your category search is crushing it. So if your Google is suffering and you're not necessarily there, or your Amazon game is not 100%, don't go into TV yet, right? Because people are going to hear about your brand. They're going to type in BattlBox. They're going to type in something, and they're going to type in KitNipBox. They're going to be like, hey, what is it? And if maybe they're not actually going to type that in, maybe they're going to type in, for us, for example, they'll type in cat toy subscription, because we just educated them on this product and the category. And so if you're not crushing it on that space, you're not going to do well, because now you've lost that opportunity. So in order to make TV successful, don't think about it in a silo, hey, it's going to work by itself, but rather, how does it work in relationship to what you're doing on search? How does it work when they get to your landing page? where does that go? And I guess one more piece to say is we look at these categories of the fact that men, women they're older and that are resonating to TV. And I know we're talking about specific TV, but also think about the buying behavior of those categories and how somebody potentially in the 56 to 60-year-old or plus range that are seeing things on TV, maybe they want to pick up the phone and they don't want to do this online, right? You need to make sure you are where your customers are trying to purchase. And if that means on the phone, great. If that means they want to buy from you on Amazon, great. That's the success. That's the only way. If you're driving real top funnel, you've got to make sure that down at the bottom, you are capturing them when they're ready for you.
That's a great point. And it's a little bit funny to me. I don't know if it's the case for you guys, but do you guys feel in e-commerce are phone sales underutilized?
I don't know if I know the answer to this at all. So we've played around on the phone sales piece. We have a full-time guy does phone sales. He does it from a win-back side of the house. So these are customers that were with us in our membership subscription, and they've churned. They've already gone through some automation email campaigns trying to get them back. We've tested how far from the last purchase works best. We found that the 90 to 120 days after leaving, that these customers respond best to these phone calls, which went against my theory. I thought it was going to be like within the first 14 days, which was completely off. But it's not scalable for us. We were hoping it was scalable. We were hoping that Patrick could have a teammate and that we were just going to start attacking this and see how many people we can do. And the reality is, for us, it's not. And we hit a middle of the fairway age demographic, that 24, 25 to 44, 45. So the second half of that, the same people that we're probably need to figure out TV for, are the ones that are answering the phones and going with it. It could be a tool in your belt, but it's not ever going to be a fancy tool. At least I don't think it will be.
I will tell you that I think it's an inbound response. That same way that some people want to walk into a brick and mortar store to buy their product, they sometimes want to pick up the phone and speak to somebody and ask them questions about what it is that I get and what's the product that goes in there. Or they want to be able to text, and it depends on the product. It depends on how important it is to them. And how, when they're giving you that money, is this the last $100 I have in my pocket? Is this a meaningful amount? And who can I speak to, or who can I have an interaction with that will assure me this is an important or worthwhile buy? And if that means they need to do that on the phone, I think you get people on the phone. And this was something when we started KitNipBox, we were very, very clear about. We will put a phone number out there. This was beginning of 2014. We understood that our customers enjoyed picking up the phone and talking. And so we had a phone in our office and we all picked up. And we got to learn who our customers were, number one, but also we took their credit cards and we started their subscriptions and we gave them some security about it. And it's not just customer service and getting them back, but rather part of the initial cycle. So when you're thinking about top funnel advertising, you have to think about the bottom funnel as well. Where do these people want to purchase from you? How do they get over that hump of believing who you are and trusting you as a brand?
I had only thought of this, post win back. I'd never thought of top of funnel, giving it as an option, something else we can do.
Even for your win back, have you tried users that are opted in, maybe sending a mass text out and utilizing phone in that way to see, does somebody want a conversation?
We won't put it in writing because we have amazing customers that are very passionate about our brand. If there's data that proves that something's being offered, it will be shared and it will be public. We've done the SMS piece, but only as a, hey, do you have a few minutes to have a phone conversation? Because we've done offers via email and SMS before. It's managing chaos at that point and explaining, oh no, not everybody can have this. Only the person we sent to, which there's no way that's going to be perceived well. SMS, I feel, is a constant work in progress for us too. I don't think we found what the exact correct cadence needs to be with that. We play around with it, and it's obviously a part of our communication, but I don't know how I feel about SMS. I have to try to take the emotion out of it. Personally, as a consumer, I think SMS is very intrusive, and I don't like when I get texts unless I ask for them.
In our conversation before, I was putting on my consumer hat, and here you are putting on your consumer hat. You're basically saying, I'm not going to market that way because I feel it's intrusive. But the reality is, you need to engage and ask and test. You said it before, we got to test it. I think you need to continue learning and testing who your customers are and how do they want to engage, and can you do it as opposed to once again, thinking about membership and subscription. Can we do it as part of a communication, a post-purchase survey, a connection to be like, hey, you just got your box. Tell us, how did you like it? Send us a rating 1 to 5. Tell us yay or nay. Asking them those questions to engage them will then allow them to start chatting with you, chatting with your customer service team. You can stand that to your product. And then they become loyalists. And then when they have an issue, they just had a whole conversation with you on text. Then now you can text with them. They'll probably start and be like, oh, wait, I just texted BattlBox. I'll text them again. And it becomes like a friend as opposed to a brand that is trying to sell you stuff.
I don't give out my phone number, but I love when brands do customer service through text messages. I absolutely love it because I don't have to stay on a computer or on a chat. They reply to me. If I get busy, I don't lose that ticket. The one interesting part in the report that I've seen, and I couldn't wrap my head around it, how the data or what the perspective was on it, is that SMS was one of the top acquisition models for females between 51 to 55. But my question is, like, how do we acquire people through text messages without the opt-in? But if you got to get them to opt in, is that an acquisition then, or is that a retarget? Like, you know what I mean?
Who's getting credit for the sale?
Well, we don't need to go down the attribution path.
I do gotta say, Jordan, I've spoken with you a handful of times. I've always been impressed with our conversations. I just didn't know you were holding back so much. You got a great perspective and a great set of really statistics and experience almost for every single thread of e-commerce conversations.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And this has been a lot of fun to kind of all be together on that. And I only have that data and I have this information because thankfully I have my success within KitNipBox, but now afterwards advising some amazing brands and that are out there, and I get to see what they're able to accomplish in a meaningful way. And I can see then across patterns for each of them. I think my knowledge is really just a reflection of my clients and the ways that they're all crushing it. So it's a fun place to be. So appreciate it.
This was fun. If you had to pick one area of focus, where should direct-to-consumer brands be focusing some of their energy right now?
I think the key is to simplify. I would tell you that in the beginning or the last couple of years post-COVID spike, everyone said we've got to diversify, do a million things. Let's be on podcast, on TV, on email, on every marketing platform and channel out there. And I would say this is our time to focus in on the few that are here. And that's why we spent so much time talking about, the top 3. And I love that section of the report, because if you can find the top 3 channels that work for your brand and just hone in on them and make them work, you will be ultimately successful across the board.
When a new channel comes out, like Threads, do you guys think brands should try to embrace it and be early adopters of it, or should they wait and get feelers from what other brands are doing?
I've sent quite a few messages in the last 24 hours to my team, and they're probably like, chill out. But I think with certainty, a brand should embrace. We don't know what the segment and the audience of Threads or any new channel is going to be. So I think if you can get in early and put some effort, I think it's easier early on, and it's a very chaotic, wild, wild west. And when that occurs, I think of early adopters to TikTok brands. I think honestly, when Snapchat, if a brand was there, even reprospecting, targeting for a small period of time because it was the wild, wild west and they hadn't honed in and really fixed their ad manager, you could find little hacks of efficiency, both on the organic and the paid side. I don't think we overcompensate and add too many resources to it, but I'm always a big firm believer on embracing and being on the front end of something for testing.
Well, I had a boss when I first started working that said to me, there are three categories in terms of technology, and I think about it the same way in terms of these social media. He said one section is the cutting edge, at the frontier for everything. Those people, they've always have to be chasing the frontier. And so if you started on TikTok, then those people that got it working, you need to be on the front edge of threads. Then the other people that hone in and know really well, it's quite the opposite. They're in 1980s technology. Right? Their core audience is on Facebook or whatever it is, and that's where they're learning and where they're living. And those people are making the money. And you've got those two extremes. Everyone in the middle, they're sort of just all squeaking by, right? And so if your brand is at the front, then you've got to be there. If your brand is in the back, then don't distract yourself. Like, stay where you're supposed to be. If you're like 80% of brands that are somewhere in the middle, stay focused on your profitable areas, like I said, and just stay simple. So I sent the same thing out. I was like, everybody sign up for your accounts on Threads. I take the piece of let's not be distracted if it's not part of your core audience of where that is. And if it takes away from your ability to engage with your audience where it actually is driving business and revenue, don't do it.
Don't take your eye off the ball. There's no need to do that. Now, if it can be an additional, it's not a huge pull of time, yeah, go ahead and set up the account, right? Go ahead and say something that in theory should take less than a minute. Little things like that with certainty. But yeah, you don't want to take your eye off what's working. And I think some people do that. It's the shiny new toy.
Do brands have an opportunity to miss out on more than to lose on more by just investing early on into a platform like Threads?
It's a little funky, right? So like, we use software tools that streamline this for us. That does not exist right now with Threads. They don't even have a web client. So if we want to put some content, we literally have to, with a mobile phone, go and do it. You can't overcompensate, Tom, because then you are taking your eye off the ball.
I think everybody should set up their account. Everybody go set up your Threads account. Go do it. Get your followers, engage it. More than that, I think is a wait and learn. Focus on what's going to drive you money. Maybe put out a post and be like, hey, this is our brand, because chances are the algorithms are going to display that to more people for right now. So make a simple post about it. See how that responds.
What I really like about it is you have this, I don't know if they're calling it town square or whatever, because when you go in your feed, you don't just see your followers. You're discovering so many conversations because they're kind of like throwing you what they think you will like, or the algorithm, or however it's working. So I've discovered like a few brands and a few people that are like, oh, that's pretty cool, and I like their content, and I started to follow them. So I don't know how much it's going to change over the next 3, 6, 12 months for them. But it's a little bit of an interesting piece that you have this like free-for-all where they're just feeding you material, and it's a little bit chaotic.
It's 100% chaotic. I'm trying to fathom and understand and get a grasp around how I believe the algorithm's curating that. I've got to think there's some play in data pulling from Instagram.
It's definitely coming from Instagram with data, because there are people that I'm not following that it immediately came into my feed on that side. They're essentially trying to merge TikTok and Twitter. Right? They're trying to give you an FYP of text and put that in front of you. My biggest gripe is that they don't have a followers thing like we do on TikTok. You want my FYP? Fine. I'll scroll through that when I want, but I want my followers tab too, so that if I want to see the people I'm actually following, fine. Otherwise, what's the point of having followers? What's the point of following people if you can't do all of that? I think that's going to be a fun way to learn, and a brand should spend 10 minutes a day on there, maybe 15, right?
Yeah.
But don't do more.
Yeah. That's accurate. Thanks for coming, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I had a lot of fun. Thank you.